The CRB Index, the Commodity Research Bureau Index, this is a basket of commodities. Again, the CRB Index is a good indicator, if you will, the tea leaves of impressions about the collective risk of future inflation by this invisible hand of the marketplace. And what this shows is that, again, this is consistent with gold in that a significant low was made in 2016, and the trend is up, but it's up at a very, very slow, modest, sustainable pace. So this is another. Gold, suggesting inflation, yeah. Oil, suggesting inflation, yeah. CRB, suggesting inflation. But all three of them at a very, very modest, subdued rate. The latest forecast for the CRB Index, this is from a source I found called tradingeconomics.com, where they have all kinds of algorithms that they put together, and they forecast what they see happening for the Commodity Research Bureau Index just through 2017. Flat. Notice this again, it's a rising arc, but just flattening out. Situation and outlook for interest rates for the next 5 years. We're going to take a breath here. Anybody have any questions or comments about my position that yes, we're going to have inflation, but it's going to be at a very slow, modest, manageable rate as far as the Fed is concerned? Anybody have any comments or observations on that? Yes?
Okay, you know, unemployment's down.
Correct.
But labor force participation rate is still really, really low.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just thinking that points to a lot of continued soft inflation also.
It's totally supportive, because inflation, there's two kinds of inflation. There's demand, there's supply pushed inflation, where you have a sudden disruption in supply, and prices have to go up just because you have a short supply. And then there's demand pull inflation, where demand is actually rising faster than supply. And for the very fact that you mentioned, yes, the Fed thinks it's okay to raise rates now because they have unemployment down. But that participation rate tells me that the risk of demand push inflation is pretty darn low for that very reason. Just because unemployment is down doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to have surging spending. I was talking at lunch to my lunchmates, and the biggest suggestion, the biggest feeder for the so-called Trump bump in the Dow Jones Industrial is not that company earnings have suddenly taken off and that price-earnings ratios are suddenly more attractive. No, price-earnings ratios are still very high. It's anticipation of an improved economy. It's an anticipation that because the unemployment rate is down, consumer spending is going to go up. But if it does, it could be very, very subdued for the reason that you just mentioned.